Steve? That's Steve, everybody. Meet Steve. All right. Do you want to say your name and where you're from? We've got time for that. Liam, let's start. Something about I don't know, where you're from or something.
Well, I'm Liam, and where's the microphone? Here we are. I'm Liam, and I'm kind of from around. I used to go to SLC regularly, and now I'm just wherever. I often go to Unity Spiritual Community in Citrus Heights, but I'm kind of just everywhere. West Central region.
Free spirit.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Welcome.
Yeah.
I'm Landon, and I also go by Chris. I come from California, like Sacramento, a little near North Highlands. I go to SLC every Sunday, and I use my imagination a lot, actually. I use it a lot. And that's about it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Malaya, and I go to SLC on some Sundays when I can go and I'm not busy. But I do enjoy coming, and this is my friend Zani, and she was here with us this weekend, helping us out. So.
All right. Welcome. Yay. Bonnie, tell us something special about you.
Oh, like where I grew up?
Just something you love.
Oh, I guess I can talk about my family. I was born here, but I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Washington, and for my Harmony, which is my Korean grandma, and I also lived with my Korean side of my family until I was like 4, because then I moved to New York, to live with more family, and then I moved to my Mexican side because my mom couldn't support me very much. So I moved to Colorado, and then I moved back to Washington, and then I moved to Sacramento, and then I started going to church, which was called U. It was for just like education for the youth, but it was mostly just surrounded by one God, and that was in Old Sac. And I thought this was the same thing, but it's not, which was a surprise.
Well, welcome. We're glad you're here. Way up, like you're going to kiss it.
I don't think she likes the spotlight.
Oh, it's all right.
My name is Renee. Hi, Renee. And I'm from SLC too.
And she's a regional.
And I'm a regional too.
A regional rep. All right, Renee, thank you.
I'm Becky. I'm also a regional officer, and this is my second term. And I usually go to the SLC, but like Liam said, I also show up at whatever events are nearby for the other chapters too.
I'm Summer. I just go to YOU meetings, and anything you want to say, Steve? All right, I don't think he wants to talk.
Okay, all right, and our sponsors, SLC is Spiritual Life Center that meets in Sacramento off of Watt Avenue. When they keep saying I go to SLC, that's what that is.
And that's what I was going to add. My name is Connie, and I get to work with these youth every Sunday.
Yay.
I'm Michael. I just want to say there is no shop vac that can clean this up. I'm going to use my mic time to encourage everyone to come on Tuesday for Halloween, trunk or treat. Bring lots of candy. Don't eat it. We're going to give it out to the children. And we're going to have our haunted house for anyone who dares to stop by.
All right, thank you. All right, let's extend our hands out and bless all of our wonderful, loving, great
Haunted house starts at 4.
kids. Thank you. 4. All right. Child of light, we love you and bless you. We see the Spirit of God within you. guiding, protecting, and prospering you always. Yay. Thank you, thank you. Beautiful, beautiful. I grew up in the Youth of Unity, you know, and it teaches you good platform skills, public speaking, loving, presenting yourself, saying who you are, plus learning all about the power of God within you. That's a given, but they're great. They're great, and it's a great opportunity for them. All right. So today our lesson is going to be love is something. Love is all there is. So I looked up a couple little humor things. Relationships are a lot like algebra. Have you ever looked at your ex and wondered why? This one's a bit questionable. Me, I love you. You, is that you or the wine talking? Me, it's me talking to the wine. Oh. I once gave my husband the silent treatment for an entire week, and at the end of which he declared, "Hey, we're getting along pretty good lately." Last one. Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Olive.
Olive who?
All of you, and I don't care who knows it. Oh, yeah. All right, there we go. So love is all there is. Have you ever had an experience that you thought was the worst possible thing that could ever happen to you, and only to find months or even years later that it was the best thing that's ever happened to you? How many of you had a couple of those in your life? More than one, yeah. I call those the worst, best experience of my life. And isn't it possible that all the things that happen in your life happen for the highest benefit, even if it's not clear in the midst of the experience how that could possibly be? We look at the news today and we think, how could all of that be happening for the best or the highest that could possibly be? May Rowland, the director of Silent Unity, she has a book called No Other Way, and she wrote a poem that I memorized because it helped me cope in those times when it was the worst, best experience of my life, when I was still in the worst part, right? It's called No Other Way. And it's, if we could see the pattern of our days, we should discern how devious were the ways by which we came to this, the present time. We should see the climb our soul has made up through the fears, the wonderings, the longings of our life, and know that we could come by no other way or grow into our good except by this path that our feet found hard to take and our faith found hard to meet. We, like travelers, go from turn to turn until we come to know that we are all inhabitants of all eternity. No other way could we but see the pattern of our days. We would see how devious were the ways by which we came to this, the present time, and we should see the climb our soul has made. We should forget the hurts, the wanderings, the wastelands of our life, and know that we could come by no other way or grow into our good except by this path that our feet found hard to take and our faith found hard to meet. Isn't that something that you can hang on to in your soul, right? It's possible. Romans 8:28, Paul says it understood when he said, all things work together for good for those who love God. He anchored in something that in those dark times helped him claim for his life the reality of spirit, the reality of his spiritual identity, the reality of spiritual truth. In Romans 31 through 39, he says, what can we say about difficulties? If God is for us, who can be against us? Who will separate us from the love of Christ? I say in modern day terms, where can we flee from the universal God presence that lives within us? There's no escape. There's no getting away from it. You can deny it, you can push it out, you can not believe it, whatever, but there is a God within us and with us that is unchanging, eternal love. Romans goes on to say, who will separate us from the love of Christ? Will hardship or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or sword separate us? No. In all these things, we are more than conquerors through the one who loves us. And again, it's allowing that flow of love from the Creator. I mean, it's in us, it's immanent and it's transcendent. You can call it up from within you, love, 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 love. You can let it flow down through you, love, love, love. It's omnipresent, right? Everywhere present. King David was a character in Scripture who represented love. In the early years of his life, with all the fooling around, he had a sensual understanding of love, but as he matured spiritually, he began to take on a personified love for God. For years, Saul and all of his armies hunted David to kill him, and he talks about only loving Saul in return. He loved Saul. His whole life, he loved Saul. And in Scripture, it tells about one time when Saul's armies were surrounding him and he was hiding in a cave, and Saul stepped into the cave to use the restroom, and David was able to crawl up behind him and cut off a piece of his robe and then crawl back undetected. And later Saul realized that David could have killed him in that moment because he was being hunted. But he didn't, because he had that love for Saul. And at the end of David's life, he says, David spoke of when God delivered him from all his enemies. You, Lord, are my rock and my fortress, my deliverer. I call upon you, and I am saved from my enemies. One of my closest girlfriends in Nashville always used to say, when she was in trouble, scatter my enemies. Scatter my enemies, God. Just scatter those people far, far away from me. Scatter my enemies. That's a good one-liner, when you need it. David said, for the waves of death encompassed me, the cords of hell entangled me, the snares of death confronted me. In my distress I called, and you heard my voice. You show your steadfast love to all. Do you feel it? Sometimes you can really feel it, and other times you have to search for it. You have to search for that love that is effervescent in us. Translated for today, David is assuring us that Spirit delivers us from everything that's overwhelming in our lives, from complex legal entanglements, from custody battles for children, from pain, from suffering, from grief, from loss, from all manner of illness and disease. And our lesson this week in our series, The Spirituality of Universal Oneness, I want to talk about love is all there is. I'm using the book that Neil Donald Walsh wrote, called What God Said, and he has a chapter entitled Love is All There Is, and in it he tells his personal story of how his faith came to, his belief came to be. He said that he grew up with a deep belief that there's only one true identity, and that is the identity of God, that each of us is. And that identity is in everything and in everything, in the earth, in the heavens, in the universe. It's all, God is all that is. And he said that he lived in a friendly universe, that always life was on his side. He was an optimist, and he felt there was a bluebird on his shoulder. How many of you have a bluebird on your shoulder? Oh, really? Okay. He didn't see life as something that was opposing him, but that was composing him. When someone would tell him to compose himself, he would imagine a beautiful symphony that he was in charge of for his life, and he was orchestrating this beautiful music for the creation of his life. He said he didn't imagine that life was opposing him, but that something, he himself, using his imagination, as we affirmed, was creating a magnificent life for himself. Several times he grew up in a wonderful family. He had a stay-at-home mom who he said actually got down on the floor and played with him and made peanut butter and jelly sandwiches with he and his brother. His father was hardworking, never missed a day at the office, brought home the bacon, kept them safe and secure, leader of the Boy Scout troop, played softball with them. So he had this kind of childhood, wonderful childhood. He said they didn't have a lot of money, but they never lacked for anything that seemed really important. Then he said as he grew up into his adult life, it was much bumpier outside that safe container of his childhood. But as difficult as life became, he never lost faith or set aside his beginning assumption in the end that everything works out for the good, that all things conform to the perfection of the Christ Spirit. And that's a real core anchor that we can all learn to take hold of. But then in one quick instant, some of you know the story, he was driving down the road and an elderly gentleman crashed into him and broke his neck. And his recovery was 2 years, where he had to wear one of those collars 24 hours a day. He couldn't take it off to shower. He couldn't take it off to sleep for any reason. And that radically limited his life. Plus he was in pain. And so he had no work, couldn't work. His money ran out. His disability benefits ran out. His insurance took 2 years to settle, and so he found himself homeless, living in a park. He said, still feeling luckier than others because he had a tent. He had a tent in that park. And he thought he'd get a job right away, but he spent 36 weeks homeless. Eventually, he went to a radio station because he had a great announcer voice, and he got a full-time job back then that paid $400 a month, which gave him enough to eat again without dumpster diving or without collecting cans and bottles to get money to have cash to live on. When he was making just enough to scrape by, he was 50 years old, making this comeback. That's when he first connected with this idea that he wrote his first book, Conversations with God. He was in the midst of this pulling out of this 2-year tragic experience. And he began to ask, where are you, God, in all of this? Where are you? And he began to hear God in his own mind and understanding, hear God answer him. And so he wrote the first book, Conversations with God. He wrote 9 more books, which made him a best-selling author and made him very, very successful financially, spiritually, emotionally, all of that. Then he says something really interesting. He says he was not, when he writes about what God said, he said he was not someone who spent his life in prayer on a mountaintop, untouched by the real world, but someone who has known the devastation of losing everything. So he's writing out of that earnestness of his soul. And he said only in hindsight, was he able to say his experience was one of the most loving things that life could have given him. Now, I know we've all had that. I don't know that we've all had that, but I assume a lot of us have had experiences where we think, where are you, God? And this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me, and how is this going to turn it for good? But what helps us in those instances, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, though, for me, I found that I have to just trust and know and actively look for the good. Find the tiniest sliver of light that I can in the experience to help hang on. The thinnest thread to hang on to. In his book, he says he feels qualified to share some of the things he learned in what he called the College of the Sidewalk. The College of the Sidewalk. So I want to go over some of those with you today. First, he said, we claim the presence of God to triumph in trouble. That's finding whatever works for you, whatever, I like to say, quick speak inventory that I have, whatever one-liner, scatter my enemies, God, whatever one-liner you can use to hang on to the presence of God to triumph in time of trouble. Jesus didn't promise us a life free of trouble, but he promised us an untroubled heart. That when we seek communion with God, we'll find that peace that passes all understanding. But it's the peace that passes all human understanding, right? It lifts us into the realm of spirit where all things conform to that perfection of the Christ. The reaffirmation of God with you and within you makes the difference between nerve-jangling anxiety and profound peace when you're in the midst of those experiences. Claim the presence of God to triumph in trouble. Second thing he said was, even though life experience pulled the rug out from under him, God never did. That the through thread through it all was there was unfailing help in the presence of God. And that's Neil Donald Walsh. This picture of, what's his name? Wayne Dyer. Right. What's his name? But he says, people would pull the rug out from under me, so I learned how to dance on a moving carpet. Right? Pretty good, huh? All right. Third thing he says, and we've said this already this morning, all things that happen in life are for our highest benefit, even if we're not clear about what that benefit is. Right? Now, this can be really tough right now as you look at Gaza and Ukraine and maybe your own life or a cancer diagnosis or something. How can God turn this for good? But you work in cooperation with good, that what you think about, you bring about. You use your imagination to see into the invisible and let your faith shape and form that divine substance and bring it forth into your life. In my morning reading today, I read something that I had never thought of before for the very first time. Let me see if I can say it the right way, because it's a reverse of you use your faith to create, to look into the invisible and create physical reality. But you also use your faith to look at physical reality and make it invisible. I never thought of that before. But you think about a tumor, you think about world crisis, and you can use your faith to look at the experience and make it go away. That's a pretty powerful faith to be able to do that, isn't it? But it works both ways. I always thought I just used my faith to create things in my life. I never thought I used my faith to make things disappear, although there are some people I have wanted to make disappear. Fourth, love is all there is, that all things work together for good. There's a bluebird on your shoulder, and his favorite belief was that there's a bluebird on your shoulder and on the shoulder of every person. That's what he found that he learned in the College of the Sidewalk. So again, I'll ask you, is there a bluebird on your shoulder or a blackbird? You know, how do you see life? Which one is it that's chirping to you and creating your thoughts and contributing to what you're thinking about? Do you live as if you had unshakable faith in the underlying good? Can you find the good in situations that come into your daily life? Can you find the good in situations as you watch the television, look at the news, hear whatever it is? When there seems to be an injustice or someone seems to be undermining your best interests, can you find the good in that in spite of what's happening in the most immediate circumstance? We said last week, it's easy to stand fast in your faith when everything is going the way you think it should. But, and this was that sentence that was really hard to absorb, there are times when we must prove our faith, when we must prove the nothingness of the negative and the reality of God the good. Can you prove the nothingness of Gaza, the nothingness of Ukraine, and hold to the reality of God the good? See, we can't judge by appearances. There is a universal essence of good, and it's hard to think that that infinite intelligence is steering the universe. But in our faith, we'll only bring that about when we form a collective vibration to lift it up into the reality of what's happening. An omnipresent, we need to become an omnipresent power. So, next slide, we want to remind ourselves that life is not opposing me, love is composing me. And I love that idea of the composer creating, using his or her imagination to write into beautiful music, to write the symphony of your life. Let's affirm life is not opposing. Put your hand on your heart. Life is not opposing me, love is composing me. Think about that. Feel that. Feel after that. Again, life is not opposing me. Love is composing me. Right. Your brain naturally wants to organize itself around something and will often choose a hot topic, won't it? Repeat, 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 redundant, repeat, repeat. So we want to shift that habit and train our brain to love. Train our brain to love. Eric Butterworth, the Unity minister in New York City for many years, said the best way that he found to do that was a two-step process. That when there's an experience in your life, you train your brain to see through it to the omnipresent good of God, to the infinite intelligence of spirit in this situation, to surrender your human ways that you'd get in there and set it right and analyze it and just worry to death over it. See through all that to the underlying spiritual truth, and then see it through. Continue in that belief, continue in holding to that affirmation, continuing and living in that vibration until you see resolution. 2 steps to train your brain to see love. See through the experience, see only the love of God, and then stay with that. Love is all there is, love is all there is, love is all there is, until you see the answer. I had a couple of affirmations. God is love, and love is taking care of this, is something we could say. God is love, and love is taking care of me in this experience. God is love. There's an old Unity hymn that I know the people from longtime Unity know. God is love. That love surrounds me. In that love I safely dwell. It is above, beneath, within me. God is love, and all is well. Again, memorizing these things gets into the cellular level, the physiology of your body, and then you can call them up when you're in distress and you think, you're down for the count and it's 9, 10 is just about 8, 9, 10, you're out. When you're at number 9, you're love is all there is, love is all there is, love is all there is. Do I have that one on a slide? I don't remember. Oops, here we go. My body lovingly heals itself with every breath I take. I love and appreciate everyone in my life. That can be hard to do some days. So to train your brain, we want to say things like all things we want to remember. All things in my life are the thoughts, and all the thoughts in my mind and all the feelings in my heart conform to love. That's a good one to stand with. I don't remember where I was this week, but somebody had stepped on my last nerve and pushed all my buttons. I don't remember. See, now I've let it go, which is good. I've surrendered it into the nothingness, which is God. But it's in those moments I find myself, I'm judging that person. And then I think, I don't want to be judgmental or critical. So I want to train my brain to love. And so love is all there is, love is all there is, love is all there is. I think it was in the grocery store. I think something was happening. I don't remember. But this is a good one. Let's affirm it. All things in my life, all thoughts in my mind, and all feelings in my heart conform to love. Life is not opposing me. Love is composing me. This week, when the love vibration and the peace vibration is more consciously active on the planet, right? Turn on the news and there are protests for peace and for ceasefire and for the humane treatment of every person, for the sacred worth of every human being. There is a collective vibration of that on the planet, more pervasive than it ever has been before, I think, probably. Millions, maybe not than before, but more televised than ever before. So we see all the people that are standing consciously for love and humane treatment and sacred worth of every human being. And so I want to invite you to stand in that same truth of your spiritual identity for your life and for our world, and declare that God is with you and within you, sure and unfailing. And God is with us and within us, sure and unfailing in these experiences. There is a bluebird on our shoulder, and we can look through any difficulty to begin to experience a deep feeling of peace and take hold of the idea that love is all there is. Hand on your heart, drop your mind, your thoughts down into your heart. Love is all there is. Together, love is all there is, right? So let's take that idea into a time of prayer. I want to remind us of the thing that I love to anchor in, no other way. So take a couple deep breaths in, close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. Think about those experiences in your life. Maybe you have one right now that God is turning for good. Can't really see the light at the end of the tunnel, but it's there. Good is there because God is there. And there will come greater understanding in your heart, greater peace, greater wisdom about whatever experience it is. Could we but see the pattern of our days, we should discern how devious were the ways by which we came to this, the present time, this place in life. And we should see the climb our soul has made up through the years. We should forget the hurts, the wanderings, the fears, the wastelands of our life, and know that we could come no other way or grow into our good without these steps our feet found hard to take, and that our faith found hard to meet. The road of life winds on, and we like travelers go from turn to turn until we come to know the truth that life is endless, and that we are forever inhabitants of all eternity, and that love is all there is. So in the silence of these moments, if there's been something in your life that's needed forgiveness or forgetfulness, I invite you to just put it on the altar. Imagine an altar in front of you and put it on the altar and let God alter it. And maybe you kneel before that altar, or you do something that feels humble to you. Fold your hands in prayer, lift your vision. Some kind of physical expression that lets you be open and receptive to the Spirit of God within you. Mayor Rowland also said, "Let this be your prayer. Dear God, I am centered in your presence and power. Nothing can disturb me or dismay me. In the darkness, your light shines. In the midst of uncertainty, your light reveals the way." Continuing in this humbling position, surrender in your mind, grace in your heart. I am centered in your love. I feel warmed and comforted. Centered in your love, I look at the world with eyes of love. I express love. I draw loving and happy experiences to myself. See that for your life. Loving and happy experiences. Continuing in this open and surrendered state, I am centered in your strength. No hurt or unhappiness can stay with me. Centered in your strength, I am lifted out of sadness. I am set free from fear. Strength fills me, and joy overflows. So again, on that altar, place anything that saddens you, anything that burdens you. Let strength fill you. The strength of spirit fills you. And we are spirit, soul, and body. So turning to the idea of our body, surrendered and open again. I am centered in your life, God. Every part of my body feels the touch of your healing life, feels the flow of your spirit within me. Centered in this life, I feel quickened and restored. I feel the infilling of your changeless, eternal life, and I am healed through and through. Love attracts love. It's magnetic. We can learn to respond to any situation with love. So as you step away from that altar, see your whole body illumined with love, your mind, your heart, your physical body. Let a vibration from your heart flow out from you like the bloodstream circulation in your body. Let it radiate out into your immediate surroundings. Let it radiate out further into our church, our community, our state, our nation, our world. I am loving and kind. I am loving and kind. Together. I am loving and kind. And as our thoughts turn to all of those we love, the names in our prayer box, all who have asked for prayer from this ministry, each one of you here today, we know the truth about you and about your life, that love is all there is, that it centers you in peace, that it strengthens you, and that it empowers your life. And for others, we say, you are blessed by love. Together, you are blessed by love. You see their faces. See them receiving that. There's power in your words. And so as love flows in and through us, to us, from us, we step up the vibration of joy. We step up the vibration of peace, wisdom, strength, power. And we know that infinite intelligence guides all of those attributes for right outcomes. And so we give thanks in the name and the nature of the living Christ, the Christ's presence within each of us. And together we all say, Amen.